Thank you, Catherine. Well, this is the time in our service when we have the opportunity to experience and express gratitude, love, and abundance. And I hope that every day in your life, you take time to notice that abundance, the abundance of sun, rain, humidity. There's an abundance of everything. And we know that when we freely and joyfully give, we are opening ourselves up to the joy-filled abundance of the universe. So whether you're giving today with a check or cash, or later today online, unityhartford.org, and you just hit that donate button, hold that giving in your heart. And then also hold a heartfelt blessing for everyone here today. And perhaps that is seeing them with eyes of love and beauty. Perhaps that's faith or peace. Whatever that is, that blessing, hold that in your heart also. And let yourself feel as grateful as you can to God in you and as your one true source. And then please join me in our offering blessing that is again on your bulletin. Together, divine love flowing as me blesses and multiplies all that I am and have, all that I give and receive, and so it is. Amen. Will the ushers please come forward and begin?
You think you own whatever land you land on. The earth is just a dead thing you can claim. But I know every rock and tree and creature has a life, has a spirit, has a name. You think the only people who are people are the people who look and think like you. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you'll learn things you never knew, you never knew. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue corn moon, or ask the grinning bobcat why he grinned? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountain? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Come run the hidden pine trails of the forest. Come taste the sun-sweet berries of the earth. Come roll in all the riches all around you, and for once never wonder what they're worth. The rainstorm and the river are my brothers. The heron and the otter are my friends, and we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hoop that never ends. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue corn moon, or let the eagle tell you where he's been? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountain? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? How high does the sycamore grow? If you cut it down, and you'll never know. And you'll never hear the wolf cry to the blue corn moon, for whether we are white or skinned. We need to sing with all the voices of the mountain. Need to paint with all the colors of the wind. You can own the earth, and still all you own is earth until you can paint with all the colors of the wind.
We just have a little setup to do. So talk amongst yourselves. Let's bring it all the way over. Here we go. Back a little bit. Okay, unless you're there. There we go. Okay, got it. Okay. Five travelers who had been seeking God for some time found themselves lodging one evening in the same place. They introduced themselves to one another as they sat in the lobby in front of the warmth of a huge window. It says rustic fireplace. We don't have that. And they started to share.
I am seeking the creative principle of the universe, an infinite mind. I am a spiritual person, but not a religious one. For me, God is beyond me.
I have found something different. I feel God is a presence that is close to me. God is with me all the time, kind of like a best friend. So for me, God is right here beside me.
I have arrived at another conclusion. I have found that God is within. God is my deepest inner self. I am part of God. So for me, God is here.
I've decided to give up trying to find God anywhere. If wise and sincere people like you three can't agree, then it seems to me that none of you are right. God is nowhere.
I have also explored various paths. They often have seemed to be incompatible and irreconcilable with one another. However, I've come to a different conclusion than you have. I don't believe that if these three can't agree, that they have to be wrong. Instead, I think actually, they're all right, and so are you. God is beyond us and ultimately nowhere. God is beside us as our dearest friend. And God is also in us, being us as our deepest self. You've all found a part of the truth. And if we put those parts together, we have a fuller truth. How about we go get some pizza and talk some more? Anyone?
Yes, yes.
Thank you to these wonderful people who said yes. Thank you to Rob and Michael and Agnes and Gail and Bonnie. Thank you all. Yay. Put everything back. So I'm going to also just say again that if during my talk you can't hear me, to please raise your hand. And yes, thank you. So I will speak louder. All right? And again, if you still can't hear me, don't be shy, raise your hand. All right? There are places in the sanctuary, the sound doesn't travel that well. So look and see who's not raising their hand. That's where you might want to sit next time. But thank you. So that skit is our introduction to our Sunday service series titled The Three Faces of God, or perhaps the three different perspectives or understanding of God. Now, you might be wondering, well, is Unity changing their mind and saying there's three gods? No. There's one God, one power, one presence. These are three different aspects of God, three different ways you might want to relate to God. As we heard in the skit, each of the travelers have part of the truth, and together they become a fuller truth. So our foundation for these 3 Sundays is from a book, and it's by Paul Smith. It's called Is Your God Big Enough, Close Enough, You Enough? Jesus and the Three Faces of God. So my goal for all of us is to consider expanding our understanding of our God and have the freedom to play with our beliefs. You might decide to alter your understanding of God. You might decide not to alter your understanding of God. And both of those are fabulous. Whatever you want to do with it, I'm just encouraging you to be open and curious. So we begin with these 3 questions. Is your God big enough, close enough, you enough? Our way shower and mentor, Jesus, had a 3-dimensional relationship with God. He talked about God, he talked to God, and he talked as God. Now, the author calls this first viewpoint of God, that the book says the big God. Is your God big enough? Well, another way is to look at that is the infinite face of God. The other 2 are the intimate face of God, and the third is the inner face of God. And perhaps another way to think about this is the God beyond us, the God beside us, and the God being us. The writer also asked us to consider relating or interacting with these 3 gods as in 3 different ways. So with the infinite God, it might be in your daily prayer practice to reflect about that big God, that infinite God. For that intimate God, it might be a way to relate or talk to that God. And finally, that inner face of God. That might be a time to rest in that God. By examining these three faces or aspects of God, we might be taking a closer step toward understanding the ultimate reality and mystery of what we have come to call God. And religion has not always been helpful. Religion has sometimes wanted us to narrow our perspective, our understanding. It has often set up boundaries that limit us, boundaries between people, and also boundaries between us and our God. Perhaps religion can be used in a better way by breaking down those walls and asking all of us to expand and extend a non-judgmental hand of peace and understanding to others who think differently, who have a different religion, a different spirituality, just a different understanding. Because, of course, it begins with us. Peace begins with us. So this big God is the God that Jesus talked about, the infinite face of God, the wondrous God beyond us, beyond what we can see, that is the source of all. Now, in the first book of John, chapter 4, verse 12, the author says, "No one has seen God." And that's true when we think of this aspect of God. For this aspect of God is beyond, is infinite, is transcendent. So, the question remains, how big is your God? Does your God embrace the expanding science of today? If not, then perhaps your God is not really big enough for the modern thinking and reflecting curious people of today. Now, before we go further, I want to bring it back to unity. And I want to bring back one of our favorite authors, Reverend Eric Butterworth. And Reverend Butterworth says that each one of us is a unique eachness in the allness of this infinite power that we have come to call God. Yeah. And he says, because I'm going to be reading exactly what he wrote, God is the transcendent whole of things of which you are an individualized part. God is a sphere whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. Any point in the universe is the heart of the universe. Reverend Butterworth wrote that every person is a steward of that tiny spark of living fire that one may desecrate but never lose. He writes that to have no other gods before the one is to have an awareness of the allness of God. God is the allness in which the whole of the universe and all that is in it exists as manifestations, real manifestations. Whatever the universe is, it exists within the allness with it, which is God. God can only be understood as a process that acts upon and within itself to manifest as stars and atoms and people. Thus, every person is an eachness within the allness of God. So the God that Reverend Butterworth is talking about is a big God, an infinite process, unlimited energy. And those are pretty big ideas and thoughts and concepts, kind of difficult to wrap your head around, your mind around, difficult certainly to wrap your arms around. God is infinite. We don't really know what to do with that because infinite is always beyond us. Creation itself declares an infinite God. Science every day is discovering more and more about our universe, discovering that our universe is so much bigger than what we thought. It is continually expanding. It is always expanding and growing, and they're finding that it will do so forever. Yeah, what do we do with that? So God is bigger than being and even more than being. The theologian Meister Eckhart wrote, "I pray to God to rid me of God." And St. Augustine said, "If I can comprehend it, then it's not God." So how can we experience this big aspect of God, this infinite God, this God beyond? There are times when we may be out in nature, and all of a sudden it hits us. I think it's called being gobsmacked. You know, it hits us. We are in amazement, in awe of the grandeur that is. I like to call it God smacked. So let me ask you, has anyone ever been God smacked? Anyone? Yeah, come on, don't be shy. Why all of a sudden everybody's shy? You know? Yeah, you've been out in nature and you went, wow. There is this beautiful song by Ricky Byers Beckwith, and we've sung it here. Use Me. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing it. But there are words that say, "I used to think that God was the sun. God is the sun, but God is so much more. More than the earth and the stars and all of creation. God is creation." Every time we sing that song, I just have to think about it. And it so touches my heart. It brings tears to my eyes. I am God smacked. Yeah. So is your God big enough? Does your imagination soar? Is your God inspiring you, filling you with awe, amazement, astonishment? Does it assist you in truly knowing that all things are possible? Are you God-smacked? Unity minister Jim Lee said that any concept of God must be expansive, must have an understanding of a God without boundaries, no limitations, able to hold polar opposites, something like Democrats and Republicans, and to do so in harmony and love. Now that's a big God, right? So the first face or aspect of God challenges us to let go of our small ideas of God so we can come closer to the divine reality or infinite being. Now, some of you may be familiar with the Christian existentialist theologian Paul Tillich. And as I read his understanding, well, it certainly expanded mine. He said this: the being of God is being itself. The being of God cannot be understood as the existence of being alongside others or above others. Whenever infinite or unconditional power and meaning are attributed to the highest being, it ceases to be a being and has become being itself. God is being itself, not a being. So to say that God is being itself is a partial truth that we can reflect about. We can reflect about or meditate about being itself, which creates and is life, love, and consciousness, is the creator and container of all. So what we see in nature, and even what we see perhaps with a Hubble Space Telescope or with the most powerful microscope, is still only partial, a partial truth. Is your God big enough to encompass everything we know and are still learning about our universe? Astronomer Carl Sagan said, "How is it that hardly any major religion has looked at science and concluded, wow, this is better than we thought? The universe is much bigger than our prophets said, grander, more subtler, more elegant. God must be even greater than we dreamed." A religion old or new that stressed the magnificence of the universe as revealed by modern science might be able to draw forth reserves of reverence and awe, hardly tapped by the conventional faith. Sooner or later, such a religion will emerge. Yes. Is your God big enough? Can you be open to the infinite face of God, or the God beyond us? And if so, can you have a practice of reflecting of God as infinite being? If God is being itself, then God exists right here, right now, in all the space and all the non-space, in the very breath that you are inhaling and the very breath that you are exhaling. God exists in all and is all. Can you reflect on that? I used to think that God was the sun. God is the sun, but God is so much more than the earth or the stars or all of creation. God is creation. This week, spend some time reflecting on the big God, the infinite God, the God beyond us, beyond all of that space where all things are possible. Now, the author has a kinesthetic, a physical thing he wants us to do at the end of the study of each of the faces of God. So I'm going to show it to you, and then we're all going to be brave, okay? And we're just going to try it on. If it's not for you, that's fine. If it is for you, terrific, all right? So it goes like this. We open our palms up, and we say, God beyond me, whom I live and move and have my being. God beyond me, I'm going to say it one more time, God beyond me, in whom I live and move and have my being. Together. God beyond me, in whom I live and move and have my being. Go and be Godsmacked this week. Namaste.